Today, we're at Kursi, and I'm not sure why, but I've actually never been here on any of my trips previously. This must be a location that is not super visited, at least as far as I can tell, but it is pretty interesting in terms of what we can talk about the traditions that are held here, as well as some ancient ruins from the 4th century Byzantine period. So there are some interesting things we're going to break down here today from Kursi, and, well, I hope you enjoy the ride. Let's go. First things first, we need to talk about the centerpiece of this entire place, and that is this monastery slash church behind me. This was built in the 4th century by the Byzantines, and as we've talked about before, this is a period that's way after Jesus, obviously. And so they believe that this is the location of one of Jesus's most popular miracles in Scripture, the one that is probably most interesting to a lot of people, and that is when Jesus comes over to the other side. So let's talk about where we are. So obviously Jesus did most of his ministry in kind of a triangular area of Capernaum, Chorazim, and Bethsaida. But he was also on the other side of the Galilee from time to time as he traveled through the Decapolis and obviously down to Jerusalem. And so this is actually the eastern side of the Sea of Galilee. I have rarely come over here to look at pretty much anything because most of the things that you visit over here are on the western side and normally the northwestern side. And so it's a completely different area over here. In the scriptures, we often hear Jesus refer to this, or the scriptures themselves refer to this as the other side. This is the other side of the Galilee, meaning it's not the side that they were normally on, but they go to the other side. And so they kind of traverse over here. Now, during one of those stories, we actually see as Jesus calms a storm coming across the Sea of Galilee from the area of Capernaum and Magdala all the way over to here near Kursi. Now, the miracle that he does here is he heals the man that we know as Legion. We are Legion for we are many, right? There's a lot of demons that are possessing this one man. Jesus is able to exorcise those demons out of the man and put them into a herd of pigs. And then those pigs jump off a cliff into the Sea of Galilee. And actually, there's a lot more symbolism here than you would ever think to believe. I'll actually let Brandon Robbins explain this one. I'll leave this video in the description down below if you're interested in learning more from my good friend Brandon Robbins.
Jesus has come for all of us, even the worst of us. And we're about to see that in a big way in a second. You see, soon after Jesus and his disciples arrive, they encounter this man who is possessed by demons. Jesus asks the man what his name is. And the possessed man responds, Legion. Now, there are a lot of theories about what Legion means, right? But one thing is for sure, it's not a proper name. Legion could be a reference to the number of demons that the man has inside of him. I mean, at full strength, a Roman legion consisted of 6,000 infantry and 120 cavalry. In other words, this man is possessed beyond comprehension. I mean, no wonder chains can't hold him. No wonder he's lost all semblance of humanity. But the closer you look at the text and the context, the more you realize that there's probably also something else going on here. You see, at the end of this exchange between Jesus and the possessed man, the demons beg to be cast out of the man and into a herd of pigs, numbering about 2,000. And so pay attention to that, right? 2,000 pigs. One thing this tells us is that Jesus is definitely in Gentile territory. I mean, pigs were considered unclean, and you would have never found 2,000 pigs in a Jewish town. But there's something way deeper going on with this detail of 2,000 pigs. Because you know what bore the image of a pig in that region at the time of Jesus? The standard of the 10th Roman Legion. Their symbol was a boar. And guess what else? That word legion, it can also be used to describe a battalion. And guess how many soldiers are in a battalion? About 2,000. The 10th Roman Legion had been stationed in Judea since 6 BC. They controlled the region. They oppressed the people. So many times they had stripped people of their humanity. I mean, you see, when you look closer, you see that Jesus is doing way more than just healing a possessed man here. This healing has revolutionary undertones. Jesus is showing that he has the power to remove 2,000 boars from this region. Jesus, the Messiah, has the power, if he wants to remove Rome.
If you're interested in checking out more, Brandon is one of the greatest biblical teachers on YouTube today, and I think he does a really amazing job, not just with this stuff, but all the stuff that he's doing currently as well on his YouTube channel. Go ahead and check it out. But let's get back to Kursi and talk about the rest of the location right here. So just like some of our other sites, I would label this as a B site. We can't be 100% sure that this is the location. However, there are early testimonies and obviously a large church built in this area for that specific reason of marking this area as the location of that miracle. So there is some evidence, but it's kind of all traditional evidence. We can't know for sure. However, one of the things that I find really interesting about this location is just understanding the early Christians. I mean, the 4th century is not that far past Jesus's time, only about 300 to 400 years, right? So this is a really, really cool location to see how the early Christians would have acted in this place. They would have known that Israel is a territory in which they have a lot of things that Jesus did, and so they're obviously wanting to build buildings like this in order to preserve it and to tell people the story about what actually happened here. So it's really unique overall. So let's check out the church and see what else is around in this area. This is the church of the 4th century monastery. Of course, several of these rooms would have been used for room and board or food preparation or whatever else, storage, but this room was specifically the church from that 4th century Byzantine period. You can see all over the floor would have been this beautiful mosaic that just spans the whole area. You can see all different types of Christian symbolism all over it, and this mosaic is beautiful for sure. Remember, not until after Jesus had died and resurrected were people actually called Christians. And so these first Christian people within the first few hundred years of Jesus ascending, man, it's so cool to see what they would have done, and it looks so similar to what we do today, right? You've got one big large room, you've got an area up front that seems to be, more of like an altar, somewhere where someone would speak, and then you also have over to the right over here a baptismal area, which is just so like any church I've been in, right? So it's a really, really cool whole setup here that they would have as monks in this monastery. Really interesting stuff. But real quick before we get to that, I want to let you know about snipesupport.com. This is the best way that you can help to support us on this channel, as well as get a ton of extra content, including full live walkthroughs of each of the locations we're talking about here in Israel. We've already put up a bunch of those over there, so you can go check those out if you'd like to. For as little as $5 a month, you could really, really help us here on the Snipe Life. So anyway, we'll see you guys over there. Thank you so much, and let's get back to the video. Now, obviously, knowing the significance of this place, it's interesting how they actually put in Greek inscriptions showing what this place was and who actually built it. This is a super common occurrence even today, in the more modern Catholic Church. But we're seeing that this inscription here basically reads, "In the time of the most God-beloved Stephanos, the priest and abbot, was made the mosaic of the Festerian in the month of December, 4th indiction, in the time of the pious and Christ-beloved our King Mauritius, first consulate." This semicircular space is really important to how this would have worked as well. As you can maybe hear as I move into the space, my voice begins to echo even more and get louder and amplify throughout the space. And that is because of these rounded walls pushing all of the sound forward. So if the speaker was here talking, you'd be able to hear him even in the back of the room, which is a really cool architecture piece. All of these areas over here would have been different sectioned off areas, most likely for rooms or different things like that. There was an earthquake, I think in the 800s or the 900s, that actually destroyed most of this place. And so it got rebuilt after that for different purposes. And then eventually, obviously, it became non-used over time. So all of these are kind of guesses as to what these things were actually used for during those times, but definitely as if this was a monastery, there would have been rooms here, there would have been different things, including a crypt, which is right over here. Seems like right down here is where they would keep their dead, so fun place for sure. And then another example of how they would use this space is right next to the church, right through this wall. This is an olive press area. So you would crush the olives using this giant millstone right here, and then you would press them using this stone right here. And they would press down, probably using the same baskets that the Jews used back in the day. And then it would come out of this little slit in the rock and into this pool right here as a harvesting area for the olive oil. So that's really cool. I imagine they used it not only for consumption, but also for anointing oil as well. Now, of course, what kind of monastery would this be without a bathhouse? Of course, the Byzantines are basically Romans at a later time, right after the fall of the Roman Empire. And so there's a Roman bathhouse here, and this would have been used not only as a monastery, use, but also because pilgrims would come here as the place that Jesus did this miracle with Legion. And so they would come to this place to visit, just like I'm doing now, and they would use this bathhouse right here. And real quick, I wanted to point these out. This is how they would actually heat the different tubs and stuff that are in here. And we'll talk about this a lot more when we get to Bet Shean. Just keep this in mind for a later video. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think about Kursi? Is this something that interests you, the early Christian church and what they built here? Obviously, this place doesn't hold as much biblical significance as some of the other locations that we've gone to, but there's a possibility that Jesus definitely did miracles here. And we know that he was around in this area. But more interesting to me, at least here, is just the understanding of the early Christian church, seeing how they lived and how they did worship. It always is, I don't know, it's funny to me to see those similarities between modern day and even back here. 300, 400 AD is a long time ago. And for our traditions to be continually, growing and coming into what we are now, I don't know, it's cool the similarities that we still had even back here.
So if you like this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. And of course, we'll see you next week for another video from Israel. You definitely don't want to miss the next few videos, so make sure you come back here. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.